أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وبعد. Good evening everyone and welcome to the Family and Youth Institute's webinar. Tonight we're very excited to hold this webinar on a topic that has a lot of concern for a lot of parents, and we at the Family and Youth Institute get a lot of questions about it. Namely, that is homework with boys. You know, people really struggle with boys doing homework. And in fact, there was a survey earlier this year released by the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And they did a global survey of homework differences between boys and girls. And they found that on average in the OECD countries, boys did 1 hour less of homework than girls did. And in a country like Canada, just north of us, boys did homework 2 hours less than girls did, the amount of time that they were spending. And they were really struggling with doing homework, and this obviously led to a lot of other issues down the road. So a very timely topic, hopefully, that we can address tonight. My name is Nadeem Siddiqui. I'm with the Family and Youth Institute, and we have two of our presenters here today. We have Sadiq Patel. He is a doctoral student at the School of Social Service Administration at the University of Chicago. He has conducted research on issues related to positive adolescent development among urban youth, the effects of community and family violence exposure, bullying, peer victimization, culturally and spiritually informed prevention programs, and many other work as well. He obtained his master's in social work at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, where he focused on psychotherapy and social identity. Sadiq is also a former research assistant with an NIH-funded violence prevention program at DePaul University. He is, like I mentioned earlier, back in Chicago now and pursuing his PhD. Our second speaker tonight will be Hiat Saleh, who holds a master's in psychology. She has been working as a school psychologist in public school districts for the past 12 years. As a school psychologist, Hiat conducts psychoeducational assessments, provides behavioral interventions and counseling for students, and offers support for staff and parents. She has worked at the elementary, middle, and high school levels, and has also been active with the Muslim community for the past 15 years, mashallah. Her work within the community has primarily focused on youth mentorship and social services and mental health. Hiat currently resides in Northern California. Both of these folks are associated with the FYI as well. Hiat's a speaker with the FYI, and Sadiq's program manager with the FYI. I wanted to invite everybody on the webinar tonight to submit any questions that they might have. You can join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag TheFYI webinar, so hashtag THEFYI webinar, or you can tweet the questions to @TheFYI_org, so THEFYI_org, or you can write your questions on the Google Hangouts page itself. You can also like us on Facebook, that's facebook.com/thefyi.org. So any one of those methods, ask us questions, and we'll hopefully address them towards the end of the program. Without further ado, here's Sadiq to start the program. Go ahead, Sadiq.
Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, I'm going to present a PowerPoint slide so you all can follow along. And again, as Nadeem mentioned, as I'm going through this presentation, I would really like you to think of questions you may have, and inshallah we'll have a Q&A session. So we'll start. So really this webinar is about homework with boys. Hopefully through this presentation you're going to get an understanding of the issues and challenges with young men, especially in regards to academic achievement within the classroom. We're going to learn the differences between boys and girls currently based on research in terms of academic outcomes. We're going to talk about how boys and girls learn differently and what we as parents, teachers, community members can do to assist our young men by providing them with teaching strategies that are conducive to their learning. So before I begin, I really want to give brief overview on the FYI and who we are. The FYI is a nonprofit research and education institute. Our primary goal is prevention. Prevention, especially in today's social science world, is a really important topic. How can communities prevent challenges from happening um, before they happen? And so really our goal is preventing challenges from occurring to young Muslims and their families. And how do we do that? We do that first by conducting research on Muslim youth and their families, and we take that research and we translate it into community education programs. You know, oftentimes we hear stories about the different challenges Muslims face in America, and these challenges range from divorce, drug and alcohol use, challenges that Muslim converts face, challenges that first generation, second generation Muslim immigrant youth face, parent-children challenges. But we don't really know if these are isolated incidents or something that's afflicting a larger population of Muslims. And so what research allows us to do is it helps us first identify the problems, to the degree to which the problems occur, where the problems are occurring. Is it an East Coast issue, a Midwest issue? Is it a suburban challenge? Is it a city challenge? And then it also allows us to understand how we can begin to solve these problems. And really this information then translates into programming that allows us to efficiently address and effectively address the problems that are afflicting Muslim youth and their families in America. And so here's another way we attempt to prevent challenges through education. This is an example of one video that we've released regarding how parents can improve parenting techniques based on research that actually will prevent or increase the likelihood of preventing their children from engaging in risky behaviors like drug and alcohol use, premarital sex, tobacco use, gambling, and again, this is just another method we use again to increase education. And part of increasing education is increasing awareness and understanding of the challenges that are occurring. And we really can't, as a community, begin to address some of these problems and challenges that Muslim youth are facing if we ourselves aren't aware of them. And so through creating an awareness, we understand that the problem or the challenge exists, and then we can begin to start understanding different solutions and ways in which we can start assisting young Muslims and their families. And so now we're going to transition to the topic at hand, and I really wanted to start with a story. You know Ali, it could be Ahmed, it could be Taha, Talha, it could be any name. But really this story is to highlight and illuminate some of the challenges parents of young boys may be facing, especially Muslim families and Muslim parents face with their Muslim young men. So you all know Ali. Ali was so excited to begin elementary school. He looked forward to all the fun you as a parent told him about that he would have. In elementary school, he started getting notes from his teacher saying that he was having some problems. These notes often included comments such as, he doesn't stay on task, he doesn't turn in his homework, he doesn't complete projects on time, he can't seem to sit still. I don't know if for the parents in the audience, does this sound familiar? As he progresses in school, in middle school, things get worse. Ali's getting by with mediocre grades, and you notice that his attitude towards school is not very positive. And this as a parent you find very disheartening. He's lost a lot of that motivation that you saw 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And so the question is, well, what happened to him? And what's sad is research shows that this story repeats itself to boys all over the country. The names and specifics change, but the underlying issue is still present. Why isn't my boy motivated to succeed in school? Why can't he seem to finish his homework? And being unmotivated can keep a child from being successful in school. It can also cause a lot of conflict with with parents. So this presentation will really try to develop our understanding regarding what we can do to prevent our boys from going through this experience. So one thing that we'd like to convey to you is how can we help them develop a love for learning before they even step into the classroom? And even more important, how can we best educate our young boys? So really I wanted to highlight some of the current research. Like I mentioned, research allows us to understand, what the challenge is and to what degree has the challenge become. And so this is really this information is to highlight, how education and especially between girls and boys has transformed in the last 40 years, especially in the US. In 1970, 60% of college graduates were men. And today, 60% of college graduates are women. So we see that change happening, especially in the last 40 to 50 years. Um, 2/3 of D's and F's given out in school go to boys. Boys are 1/3 times more likely to drop out of school before finishing high school. 8th grade girls score higher in both reading and especially in writing than boys do on standardized tests. By the 12th grade, the gap continues to widen. The average 11th grade boy in the U.S. writes at the same level as the average 8th grade girl. Medical schools in the U.S. now accept more young women than young men, and research is showing that medicine will soon be a female-dominated profession. Research is also showing that the average female outperforms males in elementary, middle, high school, college, and graduate school. And so, this slide isn't necessarily to speak to. This slide is really here to show that there's a gap. And so what we're trying to understand or explore is, what are some differences or what are some causes in terms of that gap? And it certainly isn't meant to highlight that young women are outperforming men and they are excelling in school at a more rapid rate than young boys. And so understanding what's going on with our young men. And so looking at some of the research, one of the differences between young boys and girls is really physiological and biological to a certain degree. And one thing I want to emphasize on this slide is, research continuously finds that there's no differences between boys and girls in terms of their potential of learning. And that's something I want to emphasize, that the presentation's focus is really on how girls and boys learn differently. And so looking at the physiological factors, we find that girls typically the part of the brain within girls that are responsible for memory, attention, thought, and language are actually activated at an early age. And these areas of the brain are typically dedicated to verbal functions. And so what does that mean? That studies find that young girls are excelling at writing and are increasingly and rapidly gaining better vocabulary than boys at an early age. And the contrast between young girls and boys in terms of their brains are that boys learn better with movement and pictures rather than just words. And that's a key difference between girls and boys. That if teachers allow young men to draw a picture or a storyboard before sitting down to write, they'll be able to learn better and access aspects of their brain that actually promote their learning. And there's also other reasons, other biochemical differences as well. Boys have less serotonin. Hormones play a role in terms of their ability to stay calm in the classroom. That's why it's more likely that young boys will fidget and act impulsively. And teachers often think that boys who can't sit still or shaking their legs or moving around in his chair, that he's being defiant, but the reality is he isn't. He's not physiologically able to sit still. Research has also found that, again, there's no difference in terms of boys and girls and what they can learn, but there's a big difference in terms of how they learn. And so how do boys learn? One thing that's really important to understand about boys is that physical connection between the male body and the brain causes a boy to learn best when he's moving. And so as early as when they're in the cribs, boys are already interested in the world around them. They're constantly looking at objects that are above their crib. They're constantly interested in the sounds that they hear outside of the room and outside of the home. Research finds that physical activity such as running and jumping keeps male brains developing in healthy ways that promote learning. And that's interesting because it goes against very traditional classroom techniques where boys are expected to sit in their chairs, sit still, and listen to the teacher write things on the board. And essentially, that goes against how the male brain is able to process information. Like I said, the male brain processes information through movement, through activity, and through physical activity, to be more specific. And so by deactivating that ability for boys in the classroom to not engage in some sort of movement actually reduces their ability to understand concepts and to learn concepts being taught within the classroom. And so, one thing that research continues to show is that teachers and parents have to encourage a boy's natural learning style, provide opportunities for him to use his energy to learn, allow him to explore, touch, and manipulate whatever the learning topic is, because it'll help him develop the skills he needs to be successful. Puzzles, Legos, Play-Doh, and other small toys develop fine motor skills that will prepare young boys to learn how to hold a pencil and learn how to write. So these are things you can do as a parent from an early age that'll help develop certain skills that are necessary for boys to complete things within school. Another thing that's really important is read to a preschool boy a lot. Let him play with his toy while he listens. Let him fidget. Let him move around. Let him look around the room. And remember that that doesn't necessarily indicate that he's not paying attention. It's by being able to move, being able to fidget, that actually activates aspects of his brain that allows him to process the information that you're reading to him. And one way to check that is if you think that he's not paying attention, periodically ask him, what happened in the story. And you'll likely find out that he does know exactly what's going on, that the fidgeting actually helps his ability to comprehend the information, the moving around, the playing with his toys. Children should be allowed and encouraged, especially boys and all children, to move around while they do their work. Leg tapping, standing, doodling, drawing little pictures. Oftentimes, again, for young men, might be viewed as being defined or not paying attention, but that actually activates parts of their brain, and I'll repeat this again and again, that allows him to comprehend information. Another important thing is making sure that young boys have physical activity every day. Make sure that your son's school offers playtime in the yard. A lot of new schools are being built where playgrounds aren't there, and actually kids aren't required to have recess anymore. And research shows time and time again that young boys learn better after recess. And so some schools are actually implementing morning recess so for young boys and girls, so the boys can get around, move around, so when they come back to the classroom, they're able to settle down and focus on the material. And then they have recess after lunch, again, after they settle down, after coming back from recess, research finds that they're able to understand and comprehend information at higher rates. And so these are all really important considerations. And I think as parents, as community members, as tutors, it's really important to be able to construct and specify different activities based on gender, because research time and time shows that males and females learn very differently and under very different conditions. And these have physiological, biochemical bases. And it's very important to be able to construct different learning environments for both genders in order to maximize their ability to learn. So now we're going to move away. I know I've talked a lot about research. I've talked a lot about some of the technical ways that boys and girls learn and the differences between boys and girls. But we really want to move into more practical ways that boys and girls learn. So Hiat was going to talk about what you can do specifically, tangibly, in order to foster that.
السلام عليكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So I will pick up where Sadiq left off in terms of what can we do, what are those practical steps that we can do. And I'll present both general principles and then some specifics, and go back to, again, some general principles when working with our boys. So one of the first things we can do is try to understand why your son is feeling the way he does. You can explore this with those who know him, explore this with him. And some of the things, you know him the best as the parent. You have history that no one else has. So it enables you to reflect and hypothesize why he may be feeling that unmotivation for schoolwork or homework, and not be so quick to say he's lazy. So some of the things I'd like to propose as you ponder on why he's feeling the way he is generally his intelligence level. Where do his strengths lie in terms of intelligence? What are the expectations of the school? Is it a very high achieving, high expectation? Are there very high expectations placed on him? Is the difficulty of the work not matching his own strengths or intelligence level? Could there possibly be a learning disability? Should you talk to his teacher or a school psychologist at the school, or an academic counselor, somebody who can help you navigate that question? And another thing maybe to explore, or question to pose to yourself, is does he value school? Does he see the importance or the relevance of school? Is he afraid to fail? We know that boys have a disproportionate fear of failure and really hate to make a mistake and to look dumb. So is there some anxiety or fear around just making mistakes and failing? So his response to that is, I'm not going to try. So, trying to explore that, again, with those who know him, and even asking him these questions in a way you think is best. The next thing is to educate yourself on how boys are wired to learn. And this, going back to what Sadiq has mentioned, a lot of those factors, their need for physical activity, their need for hands-on engaging activity. So a quick search on how boys learn in references to the points that Sadiq has made earlier would be helpful. The next thing is fostering a good relationship with your son or the male in your life. And the key points in this are respect, having respect for him, showing him that you have respect for him as an individual, being genuinely interested in his interests, and being inquisitive about his interests, having patience as he goes through some of the ups and downs of life, and really helping him highlight his strengths, as this may be difficult for somebody at the school age level. Next, helping him, or discovering what motivates him. What is he interested in, or where do his passions lie? What is he very passionate about? And this piece will come into use when we later talk about how to motivate him a little bit more specifically. But we know that no one's ever unmotivated about everything. He may simply be unmotivated about schoolwork or homework. So find what he is motivated by and try to use that to facilitate more schoolwork and homework being done. And then provide incentives. I mean, the lesson here is teach them that there will always be a time where they have to do things that they don't want to do. And they will spend time doing things that they truly enjoy doing. So helping them balance the balance between doing things we want to do and doing things we don't want to do. And one way to do this is to link his future goals and his desires to the present. And again, having discussions with him that, if you would like to do this in the future, or if you would like to have that particular item, this particular car, that particular profession, or that lifestyle, that what you do right now in the present is going to facilitate that and make it much more realistic for you. So again, helping him by linking his future goals to the present moment, you are underscoring the value of school as well. So next, a little bit more specific. So those were kind of general principles. Something to examine is his physical space when he studies. There's discussion on where a child should study, particularly boys, since the difficulty with homework is on the rise. But the kitchen table versus the bedroom. And recommendation is that children are better able to complete homework with less distractions near supervision or with supervision of parents. It is not recommended that boys or children in general do their homework in their bedrooms with the distractions that exist in the bedroom. The next step is get involved in the homework. So one very specific thing you can do if you find that your son struggles with this particular thing is just help them get started. Maybe show them how to do a math problem and then let them continue doing the work. This will hopefully just jumpstart the process for them. And so if they're struggling with knowing where to start or how to do it, you've supported them with the first problem. And another idea, if you find that it may not be an issue of getting started, but simply just having conversations with them about homework, just talking to them about it. The conversations you have about homework may, may convey the message that you care and that homework is important and it is something of value. So simply having conversations about them. What do you have tonight for your English class? How's that assignment going for your social studies class? So conversations about homework. Another suggestion is incorporating breaks. So this is really helpful in light of the research we know about boys needing physical activity. So for an example of this is for every half hour of homework, give them a 5-minute break and let them know that. Let them know that, I know it looks like you have probably an hour's worth of homework tonight, and that could be a drag, but, do the best you can for about a half hour, get through as much as you can in this half hour, and then take a few minutes of a break, walk around, go play outside for a little bit if it's appropriate, do something physical, and come back and do homework. So maybe just a general rule of thumb, for every half hour of homework, give them a 5-minute break. Another suggestion is making a game of the homework. What we know about boys is they love competition. So something that parents can do in the home in the spirit of healthy competition is have them compete against themselves. So for example, for every minute, you tell a child for every minute you are done sooner than expected, you get 1 extra minute on the computer or whatever it is that incentivizes them. So whether it's the computer or a game or playing with a friend, so give them that reward and allow them to compete with themselves. Or as a parent, if they're doing some drills on a math assignment, you can compete with them, see who gets done quicker, but be mindful of maybe not always winning to allow them to feel success at times. Allow your child to move as he works. I think this is a point we've mentioned often, the connection between the physical movement and the brain. Boys especially are very kinesthetic learners, so allowing them to, if it's again appropriate, walk as they read, walk or jump or shoot baskets as they recite their multiplication facts. So as they're working or studying or doing their homework, or just simply stand up instead of sit down as they're doing their work. It's important, particularly with boys, to utilize a variety of learning styles. Again, Sadiq had made reference to this, that boys learn better as they as they are much more visual learners. So as a parent, hopefully this is being done at school, but in the home and as a parent, you can really facilitate this type of learning style. Perhaps your son has come home with some assignment, and you can help develop a graphic organizer or a creative storyboard, or have him, write a blog. All of this information is much more likely to facilitate the learning and, more importantly, the retention of that information. So some of the suggestions I know I've made personally is if a student is struggling retaining, the details of a novel that they're reading or short story that they're reading, and they're not quite the kiddos who like to write a summary after reading a chapter, I encourage them to take a sticky note or a couple of sticky notes and draw a picture of the most important detail and put that sticky note on the end of the chapter. And then when you're done with the whole book, put all your sticky notes together with those visual and the drawings, and that will help you retain some information and be able to, at the end of the chapter, at the end of the novel, be able to take that test and be, assessed on your comprehension of that book. So just alternative ways of having them learn and retain that information. In reference to reading, allow them to read non-traditional texts. Examples of this are graphic novels and magazines on topic of their interests. Allowing them to read magazines on a topic of their interest allows the love of reading and to foster, and the love of the concept of to get information. This is one strategy or one activity for the retention or the obtaining information. So having graphic novels and magazines on topic of interest, and this is something you as a parent can propose to teachers. If you're noticing that your son is really struggling with the books that are being recommended by the teacher or in the school, explore what other options your son may have. And just again, from my experience, there are options, and teachers are very, very open and very likely to work with you in exploring maybe non-traditional texts. Just to continue with some more specifics, help your child with time management and study skills. So some of this is what we call executive functioning. It's those underlying processes or skills that we need to help us just manage, whether it's schoolwork or homework or chores at home or just basic responsibilities as you age in adulthood, and some very specific things. And you'll be surprised at these types of skills, like time management and study skills and how to really answer a question, are things that are oftentimes not explicitly taught. And there are some who get it naturally and don't need the explicit teaching, and there are some, it tends to be more boys, who need these skills very explicitly taught to them. So as a parent, some of the skills that you can facilitate at home are time management and study skills. Examples of those include how to break up a long-term project into mini assignments. So something that's due in a month. How do I, so you're not cramming everything in the night before it's due. And this is a very valuable tool that you can help give to your child. So as soon as it's assigned, sit with your child and say, this is how much time we have, and ask your child those questions. How long do you think it's going to take? How do you think we can break up these assignments? Most of the time, teachers do provide rubrics and kind of give you some guidance on how much should be done at what point. But this would be a very valuable tool. And the nice thing about mini assignments is it gives the student or your son success along the way. And so it really fosters a very good feeling that, okay, I've met my first deadline, they're very positive and much more likely to work towards the second mini assignment. And then approximating how long it will take to get assignments done, and then planning accordingly. The next tip in regards to just getting homework done is, homework on the weekends, which could be a struggle. One suggestion that researchers and educators have is weekend doesn't begin until overdue homework is completed. So really instilling into your son the concept of accountability, that whatever was neglected or wasn't due during the week needs to get done before your free time, before your weekend actually begins. So if this means working on Friday night or Saturday, and I think this is powerful, what we call a powerful reinforcer, is simply because most kids don't want their weekends taken away. I mean, most adults don't want their weekends taken away. So this is one of those incentives that we had talked about earlier, is that general principle of find something that's really going to motivate them to do the work. And in this case, it's if you haven't gotten the homework done over the week, then you'll need to spend some time doing it over the weekend before you enjoy the weekend. Some other general concepts to keep in mind in motivating young boys is introducing him to a male role model. And this is helpful because this will give them a real-life example of what providing them a real-life example of someone that they want to be like, or something that they want to. This person may do something that they aspire to do, and it makes school much more relevant for them. So again, linking the relevance of school, going to school day in day out, and doing homework, they actually have the visual reminder of, I want to be like so and so, and I know he had to do X, Y, and Z to do what he is now doing. And having, another suggestion is when you find that role model as a parent, encourage your child to have these discussions with that person. What did you have to do what you're doing now, or have what you're doing now, or become who you are now. So again, hoping to make school more relevant and therefore much more motivated. And as a parent, make sure to communicate that you care. In light of perhaps the struggles that are going on, the lack of motivation, the lack of desire to do homework, that it can really wear on parents. But communicate that you it's important to communicate that you care, saying words like, I care about you. I know I can't, and I know I can't make you do it, but I care about you. So, avoiding the confrontation and avoiding any kind of shouting or pleading or yelling that the frustration may cause one to do, but and not to take it personally. Again, just to communicate that you're doing this simply because you love him, you care about him, and you want him to do well. So I think it's important not to forget to communicate that message. Let him. So the next point is letting him work for what he wants. In the reason that this is here is it's important to teach young people, not just boys, but teach him that you have to work for what you want. And so this concept is a very important concept and a very important value that it is important to instill early on. And again, linking that if you want this, then you must do this at the present moment. Don't do things that he can do for himself. And the key here is the concept of teaching him accountability and independence. And not learned hopelessness. Learned hopelessness. So, I don't get this, I don't want to do this, I know mom is going to jump in and save the day. Or I waited to the last minute and I have this assignment due, but I know mom's going to jump in and save the day. So letting him do things that he can do for himself. Of course, if there's support, then providing that support. But and then letting natural consequences take their course. This may motivate them to bring about the change or to work differently. And then lastly, it's just as a reminder to focus on strengths and encourage him, always provide encouragement, and to be patient. And within the strengths, always emphasize, always look for those successes and emphasize the successes, even if they are very small. So, if you notice that he's never spent more than 15 minutes on homework, and today he spent 20 or 30 minutes, encouraging or pointing out those successes that he's had or those improvements that he's had can go a long way. And just being patient through the process. We have, lastly, the last slide that you'll see there is the some additional resources that complement some of the things that we talked about tonight. So I think we are done with the presentation, and I think at this point we'll take it, give it back to Nadim.
Thank you, Hiat and Sadiq. Okay. So that was a very insightful and useful presentation. Quite a bit of information being presented there. Things that I learned myself. The fact that boys are wired differently than girls, boys are so much more active than girls, and the fact that we should make them move around or twiddle their thumbs even while they're studying. Just that additional physical activity helps them. Even Play-Doh and Lego blocks, like Sadiq mentioned, are good tools that you can help incorporate in the early years, and then that set a pattern for the later years. The bottom line is there's a lot of energy there, and we need to funnel it appropriately rather than trying to suppress it in some way. So, and then Hiat went through a whole slew of different techniques that we can use to try and channel that energy and understand it. First and foremost, she pointed out we need to understand and make sure why the child is not doing well. Is there a learning disability? Are there other issues or circumstances? You want to eliminate, if there is a medical issue or some other external force, so that because that requires a very different treatment pattern than it's just a normal boy who has a lot of energy that needs to be addressed here. So first, it's extremely important to do that, and then she went through a lot of things. I mean, figuring out what motivates the child, linking their goals from the present to the future, just establishing that long-term view, putting out a good study space, the kitchen table being one that has less distractions than the bedroom, and as well as being supervised there. One thing that I thought was really nifty, I didn't think about this before, was she mentioned that people have different learning styles, right? Back in the old days, I remember using flashcards, so now storyboards, etc. People don't use flashcards as much anymore, but just writing it out. And she went further. It's like, if you're learning, have the kids draw out little drawings on sticky notes and stick them in the novel as they're reading in the different pages. And at the end of the whole novel, you can use the sticky notes to create a summary. Wow. So that was just that was really neat. I'm going to try and practice this with some of my kids. Maybe try it myself, even see if it'll ever work. But so that was really nice. And then, the basic things about time management and study skills, even the basic thing of breaking up this larger, huge chunk of an assignment and breaking it down into small little parts, and then even prioritizing it and saying, all right, here's this little homework that I can do in half an hour, and this other one I know is a bigger assignment. It's going to take me 2 hours to do. Well, let me just get what I can done out of the way, feel a sense of accomplishment, and then move on to the bigger items. Just that thought process of prioritizing, important. And then at the end, we want to focus on the strengths, encouraging and be patient with the child rather than being confrontational or fighting. Having that loving statement that I can't make you do it, but I care about you and want you to do well in life. So I thought there was some great points that were being made there. And there is also that resource page. I'll make sure to get the resource page and have it put up on our website so that those who want it can download it and access the resources as well. Open up to the audience for questions. If you have any questions for Sadiq or Hayat, as I mentioned earlier, you can type it out on Twitter, hashtag the FYI webinar, THE-FYI webinar. You can tweet questions to @the_FYI_org. Post it in the Google chats on the Google page, as you wish. Here's a question. My son forgets his homework on purpose, so he won't have to do it. Oh, what would you do about that?
The question is, my son forgets his homework on purpose, and what should I do about it?
Yeah, so it's I guess the person feels the son forgets the homework on purpose, so he won't have to do it.
Yeah.
I guess it'll pile up. So what can they do about it?
I can.
Hayat, would you like to go ahead?
Oh, sure. Sure. So I would try to observe his behavior. How often is he doing this? And you said he's doing it on purpose. So I'd want to look into that. Check with the teacher. Was homework being posted online, which is usually what's being done these days, and then give him my suggestion, and I'll let Sadiq share if he has any other thoughts. But if he's truly forgetting it on purpose, and he's being very manipulative in some ways about the homework, is he gets to stay in his room all day, for the evening, or the privileges of the day get taken away until he is able to bring that homework. And again, I want to reinforce the on purpose part. I'd want to investigate. Is he could he have problems? First of all, attending to, remembering to bring in the homework assignment. Did he not capture the notes that his teacher has said? So first I'd really want to explore all of that before I say that I think he's doing it on purpose now. So explore those, and then if you and the teacher have come to the conclusion that he has done it on purpose, then I think this is where consequences come into play, because I think it's important to teach the concept that that if you're choosing to do this, these are going to be your natural consequences. So again, don't let him enjoy. I would say remove the pleasurable things in that evening, whether it was it's his night to play video games or watch something, or he was going to play with a friend, or even if it's his soccer practice that night. So again, teaching him the value of first things first, that you have to complete this homework. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I would just have a conversation with him. I think typically, most people, even when they're doing things that are, there are negative consequences to it, like purposely forgetting the homework, especially young people. I mean, there's a reason why it's happening. So, obviously, I definitely agree with make sure that there's consequences, because I think that's important to establish boundaries, especially as a parent, to deter your child from continuing that behavior. But then there also needs to be a conversation about why it's happening, what's going on at school, and really, as a parent, hopefully you're having these check-ins or these conversations often. In grad school, I meet with my advisor every week, and we talk about concerns I have. So as a parent, talk to your child every week, and talk about what's going on at school, if not every day. How they're enjoying school, what's going on with the school, how they get along with their teachers, the other students, the classwork. Because oftentimes you may find that might be a remedy to potentially a situation where now they're purposely forgetting their homework, or they're just not doing their homework, or they're just not that engaged in school. So make sure that there's that communication between you and your child, and it's happening often and continuously, and creating that space where they can tell you they don't like school or they're bored at school, and they feel like you'll listen to them and try to understand why and where they're coming from, versus taking a more punitive approach, where you put them down or you tell them that they need to buckle down and get serious about school or they're going to ruin their life. Or, sometimes parents mean well in terms of what they say to their child, but you really just want to foster that openness. And you may find that that's a good solution in the long term to preventing these problems from happening.
Very good, very good. So bottom line, try to understand what's going on. This is basically the child giving a signal through forgetting the homework. So having some type of communication to understand what's going on, and then as understanding that, not to let it go. So you have consequences attached to that afterwards. That if you keep doing this, obviously there's long-run ramifications there. Okay, good stuff. Here's another question. My 5th grader reads stories at home to prepare for reading tests, but he fails the tests every time.
Yeah. I have mixed feelings, and Hayat, I'll let Hayat add to this, but in terms of testing and what tests do, so from what I'm hearing, the issue is your child is reading, they're putting forth this effort, and it's not necessarily, the effort that they're putting in outside of school isn't necessarily translating into a good grade. In fact, it's translating into a failing grade, from what I heard. If you feel like your child is understanding content and they are learning and they are improving, you see them constantly engaged in their schoolwork, as a parent, I wouldn't necessarily jump to the conclusion that they may not be as academically inclined. I would first talk to the teacher and try to understand how the teacher is testing your child. What kinds of questions they're asking. Because oftentimes tests are written in a way where maybe the child just doesn't understand the questions that are being asked. And so before, feeling like maybe your child is an underachiever, or they may not be as academically or intellectually talented, first talk to the teacher, look at the test, try to understand where that gap lies in terms of your child doing homework, understanding the material, but now this exam isn't necessarily showing that they do. And so how are the questions being asked? Are they appropriate? Are they written in a way that your child understands them? Maybe you need to sit down with your teacher, the teacher and your child, make sure your child just understands what the teacher is asking for on the test. And small things like that may help fix that. Or it may identify areas that maybe your child is working in objectives 1, 2, 3, but the teacher is testing objectives 5 and 6 and 7. And so making sure that your child, in addition to learning the first 3 objectives, is now understanding the other objectives that are being tested, which they may be overlooking when they're doing their homework or preparing for their test.
I'm just going to, just to add to that, to add to that, I actually hear this very often. In the school district I work at, they call it accelerated reading. They have to read a certain number of books and then go on the computer and take tests, and it really is an assessment of comprehension. And there are lots of children who have the challenges that you just described as a parent. A child who, I see my child read the book right in front at the kitchen table, and he then takes the test and he fails. So some of the questions that I would look into is retention. So it sounds like there could be a memory, retention. I would explore, is he having, does he have challenges just retaining information, just in general? When you give him 3-step directions, is it challenging for him to retain that information, then act upon it? So I'd explore, are there retention or comprehension issues in other areas to really help you resolve that, understand it a bit more. And then as a parent, some practical things that I think you can do is to help your 5th grader is, if it's a novel that he's reading, at the end of a chapter, if you think maybe it could be at the end of 5 pages, at the end of 10 pages, at the end of the chapter, sit with him and ask him, tell me what happened in the story. So he's given an opportunity to express to you orally, not like maybe the tedious act of writing a summary, but just very naturally, tell me what happened, who were the characters, how was it resolved, what's the the issue in the story. So the act of having him retell that story to you is one way that may increase his comprehension and therefore his retention. And so it also allow you to understand that, yeah, he has actually sat here for 20 minutes, but he really isn't understanding what he's reading. So then it may be a comprehension or a reading question to help you understand. And then again, like Sadiq said, communication with the teacher is key. Perhaps there are alternative ways to assess. I mean, I think at the end of the day, these assessment tools are done because they're pretty efficient. I am a teacher of a classroom of 30 students. It's so much easier for him to go on the computer and take this test than me do an alternative test with him. So, if you and the teacher have discovered that, that may not be the best way to assess him, what are some alternative ways to assess his understanding? Could it be drawing it on a board? This is the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. Could it be an oral presentation to her? Does it have to be him taking a written test to show that he comprehended what he has read?
Okay, good thoughts there. Both trying to understand the nature of the test as well as the nature of the child, and not making any assumptions to understand what the issue is. We've got 4 minutes left. Maybe we can squeeze in one last question before we wrap up. This one's about group assignments. So group assignments for boys, they tend to drag on with lots of joking and getting sidetracked.
Yeah. I mean, that's group assignments for undergrads, graduate students, PhD students that are in their 30s. I do think that people learn from one another, and that it's part of that socializing process. I know as a parent that might seem concerning, especially as you feel like your child isn't taking the work seriously, isn't working as efficient. But also recognize that through those social interactions, your child is learning certain skills in terms of how to communicate with other individuals. And those are also very important skills to develop. And so looking at school more broadly than just a place where people learn information, memorize information, and then regurgitate information in an exam. Recognizing that it's a place where kids are going to grow socially, emotionally, mentally. They're going to develop their interpersonal skills. They're going to learn how to work with different individuals. And these are all skills that they're going to take with them into high school, in undergrad, graduate school, and into their profession. And so that's important. Part of fostering relationships with other individuals, especially when it comes to coming together in a group and kind of accomplish a task, is being able to make a connection with people. Sometimes humor is one way people do that. And so don't necessarily, obviously make sure that they're getting their work done and they're completing it in a way that you find is good. I can't imagine another word, but acceptable. But at the same time, recognize that that these interactions also have benefit in terms of long-term success.
Hayat, any concluding words in a minute?
Just to add with that, if the question was that they're not getting it done, as a parent, I would concur with everything Sadiq said, that social interaction is really important. And those are the memories that they have of school, which is positive. But if you as a parent are really truly concerned about the progress that they're making, check in with them, help them make the plan. And just encourage, hey guys, I see that you're really enjoying your time together. How's it going? How can I help you? Can I help you break this up or check in with them if that's a concern?
Okay, thank you very much. We're getting to the top of the hour, so unfortunately we have to end at this point and not take any more questions. However, if folks have more questions, please do contact us. Come to our website, thefyi.org. That's thefyi.org, thefyi.org. That's also the website where we'll post the resource page that was on the presentation. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/thefyi.org. Again, facebook.com/thefyi.org. And you can always email us or shoot us messages, some questions, and we'll try and address them one way or another. If there are other burning issues that you have, other topics that you'd like for webinars as well, things that you'd like to see, again, connect with us and we'll see what we can do about it. Lots of resources available online. Thank you, Sadiq, and thank you, Hayat, for this very informational webinar. A lot of good information shared, and thank you to the audience for tuning in. Until next time, Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.